The Unwelcome Alliance. The transport ship Helios Dawn shuddered as it entered Iskarion's atmosphere, the vibrations rattling through Tarek Voss's experimental armor. He sat apart from the other mercenaries, eyes closed, mentally reviewing the mission parameters while his fingers methodically checked the seals on his suit. 15 years as a combat specialist had taught him that preparation could mean the difference between breathing and burial. Still babysitting that outdated junk, Voss. Captain Reyna called from across the hold, her voice carrying over the rumble of the engines. Command offered you the new Valkyrie series. Lightweight, neural-linked, but you stick with that ancient prototype like it's your security blanket. Tarek didn't bother opening his eyes. The Valkyrie series has a catastrophic failure rate above 8,000 feet and shorts out in water deeper than 6 inches. I'll keep my outdated junk, thanks. The truth was more complicated. The X-27 compression armor fused to his body had saved his life more times than he could count, but at a cost few understood. He was the last surviving test subject of Project Aegis, an experimental program that had bonded the reactive metal alloy directly to his cellular structure. The others hadn't survived the process. Sometimes, in his darker moments, he wondered if he truly had either. The ship landed with a jolt that would have thrown him from his seat if not for the restraints. Outside the viewports, the capital city of Verilith sprawled across the valley, a sprawling metropolis of crystalline towers and curved architecture that put human cities to shame. The Iskarians had achieved space travel 3 centuries before humans, a fact they never let anyone forget. "Remember your briefing," Commander Ellis said, standing to address the 12 mercenaries. "We're here at the invitation of the Iskarian High Council to assist with their insurgent problem. The Northern Territories are in open rebellion. Our mission is to train their forces in counterinsurgency tactics and provide tactical support. Nothing more." She paused, her gaze settling on Tarek. "The diplomatic situation is delicate. The Iskarians don't fully trust us. Don't give them reason to trust us less." Tarek understood the unspoken warning. Humanity's relationship with the Iskarian conclave had been strained since first contact 70 years ago. This military cooperation was unprecedented, a sign of how desperate the situation had become for the proud alien civilization to request human assistance. The team disembarked into blinding sunlight. 3 moons hung visible in the lavender sky, casting multiple shadows across the landing platform. A delegation of Iskarians waited, their tall, lithe forms draped in ceremonial armor that caught the light in iridescent patterns. Tarek immediately identified their leader, a female Iskarian whose armor bore the distinctive markings of the Kashira warrior caste. She stood a full head taller than him, her scaled skin a deep blue-violet that darkened around her eyes and jawline. The ridge crest running from her forehead back across her skull identified her as a veteran of multiple campaigns. "I am War Commander Nyella," she announced, her translator rendering her complex language into clipped, precise English. "Welcome to Verilith. The High Council eagerly awaits your assistance." The pause before assistance communicated her doubt more clearly than words. Ellis stepped forward. "Commander Ellis, Terran Special Operations. My team is at your disposal." Nyalla's gaze swept over the human mercenaries, lingering on Tarek's distinctive armor. A subtle expression, something Tarek interpreted as disdain, crossed her alien features. "Your equipment seems primitive," she remarked, addressing Tarek directly. "Our armorsmiths could provide you with something more suitable for modern combat." Tarek met her gaze steadily. "I appreciate the offer, War Commander, but my equipment meets my needs." She made a gesture that her translator didn't bother interpreting, clearly dismissive. "Very well. Follow me. The council is waiting." The council chambers occupied the highest level of the central spire, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time map of Iskarion's star system. 7 council members sat on elevated platforms, their ceremonial headdresses marking their various castes and territories. The eldest spoke, his voice resonant even through the translation. The human contingent is welcome. Your species' unconventional warfare tactics may provide the advantage we need in this conflict. Terek listened as Ellis outlined their capabilities and approach. The insurgents had taken control of 3 northern provinces, using the mountainous terrain to evade conventional Iskarian forces. They were well armed, possibly with off-world technology, and demonstrated tactics unlike traditional Iskarian warfare. We propose a joint strike team, Ellis concluded. Small, mobile units combining our specialists with your warriors, focusing on intelligence gathering and strategic targets rather than direct confrontation. A murmur rippled through the council. This wasn't how Iskarians waged war. Their tradition emphasized honor, direct combat, and overwhelming force, not the guerrilla tactics humans had perfected through centuries of fighting each other. Unacceptable, one council member declared. Skulking in shadows, striking from hiding. This is not the Iskarian way. With respect, Terek spoke up, surprising even himself. Your way has cost you 3 provinces and thousands of casualties. Perhaps it's time to try something different. Silence fell. Ellis shot him a warning glance, but the damage was done. War Commander Nyla stepped forward. The human speaks out of turn, but not without truth. Our traditional approaches have failed. I will lead a joint unit as proposed. She turned her piercing gaze to Terek. This one will join my team. His directness may prove useful. Thus began the most uncomfortable briefing of Terek's career. In a chamber adjacent to the council hall, Nyla outlined the situation in clinical detail, her manner making it clear she considered working with humans a necessary evil rather than a desirable partnership. The insurgents call themselves the Children of Ancient Light, she explained. They claim the High Council has abandoned traditional ways and cosmic balance by embracing technological advancement and interstellar diplomacy. Terek studied the holographic map as she spoke. Religious extremists. Traditionalists, she corrected sharply. Not all deeply held beliefs are religious extremism. Human. Specialist Foss, he corrected in turn. And beliefs that drive people to violence deserve scrutiny, regardless of their cultural origin. Their eyes locked, mutual challenge hanging in the air between them. Their stronghold is here, she continued finally, indicating a mountain region. We've attempted 3 assaults, all failed with heavy casualties. Terek examined the terrain. Because you approached from the valley, directly into their line of fire, with large force formations that couldn't maneuver in the narrow passes. A muscle twitched along her jaw ridge. As is honorable in combat. As is predictable, he countered. Honor makes a poor shield against kinetic weaponry. To his surprise, something like amusement flickered in her expression. Then what do you suggest, Specialist Foss? He indicated a seemingly sheer cliff face. Here, small team, night approach. Climbing equipment for the vertical ascent. They won't expect an attack from what they consider an impassable approach. My warriors are not mountain climbers. Mine are, Terek replied. We'll lead, you follow. The mission was approved despite objections from traditionalists on both sides. A team of 8, 4 humans, 4 Iskarians, would infiltrate the insurgent stronghold, gather intelligence on their leadership and supply lines, and if possible, capture their commander. As they prepared their equipment, Terek became aware of Nyla observing his pre-mission routine with undisguised curiosity. Your armor, she said finally. It moves differently than standard human combat suits, almost organically. Terek continued his equipment check. It's a prototype. Limited production. Is it sentient? Some kind of symbiotic system? No, he answered, more sharply than intended. Just advanced materials science. She approached, drawing a ceremonial blade from her belt, a curved weapon of apparent ceremonial significance given its positioning and ornate hilt. May I? Without waiting for permission, she touched the blade to his armor, pressing gently. Terek remained still, watching her reaction as she applied slightly more pressure, testing the material. Curious, she murmured. It seems to absorb and redistribute force. Something like that, he acknowledged, stepping back. We should finish preparations. Departure is in 3 hours. The team assembled at dusk, a mixed group of specialists who regarded each other with professional wariness. Tarek recognized the careful distance the Iskarians maintained from their human counterparts. Not outright hostility, but clear boundaries. During the low-altitude flight to the drop zone, Tarek reviewed the intelligence reports. Something didn't add up. The insurgents' weapons and tactics showed sophistication beyond what a traditionalist faction should possess. Either they had outside help, or the situation was more complex than presented. The aircraft hovered momentarily before setting down in a secluded valley 30 kilometers from their target. As they disembarked, the night air carried the scent of unfamiliar vegetation and mineral-rich soil. We move fast, stay low, maintain communications discipline, Ellis instructed. Specialist Voss has point. War Commander Nyla has final tactical authority. The division of leadership was an awkward compromise, but workable. Tarek activated his armor's enhanced vision modes and took the lead, guiding them through dense forest toward the mountain base. They had covered less than half the distance when his sensors picked up movement ahead. He signaled a halt, dropping to one knee to assess the threat. 6 heat signatures, moving with purpose. An insurgent patrol, heavily armed. Nyla moved silently to his position. What do you detect? Patrol, 200 meters ahead. 6 combatants, energy weapons, moving perpendicular to our path. We should engage, she said immediately. Eliminate the threat before they detect us. Tarek shook his head. Unknown if they're in communication with their base. If they miss a check-in, we lose the element of surprise. Then what do you suggest? We wait. Let them pass. The war commander's expression made her disagreement clear, but she nodded curtly. Your approach for now. But if they detect us, they won't, Tarek assured her. The team concealed themselves as the patrol drew closer. Through his enhanced vision, Tarek could make out their features, definitely Iskarians, but with distinctive facial markings he hadn't seen before. More concerning was their equipment, advanced weaponry that shouldn't have been available to a fringe group. The patrol passed within 30 meters of their position, close enough that Tarek could hear their communications, not in Iskarian language, but something else entirely. He recorded the audio for later analysis. When they had passed safely, the team resumed their approach. Nyla moved alongside Tarek, her expression troubled. Those weapons, she said quietly. They're not Iskarian manufacture. I noticed. Any idea where they're from? She hesitated before answering. They appear to be Cathari design. But that's impossible. The Cathari Dominion has maintained strict neutrality in conclave affairs for generations. Tarek filed this information away. The Cathari were an enigmatic species known for their advanced technology and isolationist policies. If they were supplying insurgents, the implications extended far beyond a local rebellion. They reached the base of the cliff as midnight approached. The sheer rock face loomed above them, disappearing into darkness. Tarek activated his climbing systems, micro-adhesive pads and tension-distributing anchors that would allow vertical ascent with minimal equipment. We'll secure lines for your team, he told Nyla. Follow our path exactly. For once, she didn't argue, watching with carefully masked interest as Tarek began the ascent. The X-27 armor enhanced his natural strength and reflexes, making the climb almost effortless despite the nearly vertical angle. Halfway up, disaster struck. One of the Iskarian warriors, struggling with the unfamiliar climbing technique, lost his grip. His startled cry pierced the night as he began to fall. Without hesitation, Tarek released his position, launching himself into a controlled descent that intercepted the falling warrior. His armor absorbed the impact as they collided, and he managed to secure a new hold on the cliff face with the Iskarian clinging to him. I've got you, he grunted, the armor's servos whining as they compensated for the doubled weight. For several tense moments, they hung suspended hundreds of meters above the ground. Then, slowly, Terek began to climb again, carrying both their weights. When they reached a stable ledge where the others waited, Nyala was watching him with an unreadable expression. "You risked yourself for one of my warriors," she stated, as if trying to reconcile this with her understanding of humans. Terek checked his equipment, avoiding her gaze. "We're a team. That's what teams do. Verak would have died without your intervention. The debt is acknowledged." Before he could respond, his armor's sensors triggered an alert. He raised a hand for silence, scanning the area above them. Movement at the cliff top. "We've been detected." "Impossible," Nyla hissed. "This approach is unguarded." "Not anymore," Terek replied grimly as the first energy bolts seared the air around them. "Take cover." The narrow ledge offered minimal protection as fire rained down from above. Terek's armor deflected several direct hits, the material absorbing and distributing the energy. "We need to move," Ellis shouted over the comm. "We're exposed here." Nyla made a swift decision. "Up. It's our only option." Charge directly into their position. Terek wanted to argue. It was tactically unsound. But she was right. The cliff offered no retreat, and staying put meant eventual defeat. They had to push forward. Covering fire, he ordered the human operatives. Alternate bursts while the others advance. What followed was a desperate scramble up the remaining cliff face, energy weapons firing blindly above, while insurgents rained fire down upon them. Terek's armor took multiple hits, the material heating dangerously but holding. As they neared the top, Nyala drew her ceremonial blade alongside her standard weapon. "Ready for close combat," she warned. These heights belonged to the children now. Together, they crested the cliff edge into chaos. Not the small guard post they'd expected, but a major insurgent position with dozens of armed fighters. Somehow, their approach had been anticipated. "Pull back," Ellis shouted, but it was too late. They were committed. Terek charged forward, his armor deflecting incoming fire as he crashed into the first line of insurgents. Beside him, Nyla moved with fluid grace, her blade claiming two enemies before they could react. "We're outnumbered," he called to her. "We need an exit strategy." "There is no retreat in Iskarian combat doctrine," she replied, her blade flashing in the darkness. "Then today's a good day to update your manual," Terek growled, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward a defensive position as explosive rounds detonated where they had been standing. As they fought back-to-back against the insurgent force, Terek couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. Someone had known they were coming. The mission was compromised before it began. And as dawn broke over the mountain, revealing the true scale of the force arrayed against them, he realized this was no simple rebellion. The insignia on the commander's uniform wasn't Iskarian at all, but Cathari. This wasn't just an insurgency. It was an invasion. Crucible of fire. Dawn illuminated the full extent of their predicament. What should have been a small outpost had revealed itself as a major Cathari forward operating base. Dozens of bodies littered the plateau, both insurgents and half of their own strike team. Only Terek, Nyala, and two others had survived the initial assault. "Fall back to the eastern ridgeline," Terek shouted, laying down suppressive fire as Ellis dragged an injured Iskarian warrior toward cover. Nyala moved with lethal precision, her blade claiming another enemy as she cleared their escape route. The remaining Iskarian warrior, Verak, the one Terek had saved during the climb, provided covering fire with his energy rifle. His shots were precise, each finding a vulnerable point in the enemy's armor. They retreated in fighting order, leapfrogging positions down the narrow path that wound along the ridge. Enemy fire followed them. Superheated projectiles shattering rock and scorching vegetation. Their commander, Nyala, called to Terek as they took momentary shelter behind a boulder. "Did you see the insignia? Not just Cathari. Dominion Special Forces." Terek nodded grimly. "This isn't a supply line or advisors. This is a direct intervention. Impossible. The Conclave and Dominion have maintained peace for 3 generations. Tell that to them. Terek replied, gesturing toward their pursuers. A blast of concentrated energy struck their position, superheating the rock. Terek's armor temperature sensors flashed warning indicators as ambient heat spiked. Move, he ordered, grabbing Nyala's arm. They sprinted toward the next position, energy bolts slicing the air around them. They had nearly reached cover when Terek heard Ellis cry out behind them. He turned to see the commander fall, a precision shot having found the gap in her armor at the neck joint. Commander. Terek changed direction, moving back toward her fallen form despite the intensifying fire. Ellis looked up at him, her expression already distant. Complete. The mission, she managed, pressing a data chip into his hand. Council needs to know. Before Terek could respond, a barrage of fire forced him to retreat. Ellis was gone. Varric provided covering fire as Terek rejoined Nyala behind a rocky outcropping. We need to split up, Nyala decided, her tactical mind calculating their diminishing odds. Create confusion, multiple targets. Terek wanted to argue but couldn't fault her logic. Rendezvous point. The sacred pools, 10 kilometers south. If we're not there by nightfall, assume capture or death. Varric's voice came over their comms. I'll draw them east. Buy you time. Before either could object, the loyal warrior broke cover, firing wildly as he charged toward a different path. The enemy force, momentarily confused, divided their attention. Now, Nyala ordered, and they broke in opposite directions. Terek heading west down a treacherous scree slope, Nyala south toward denser forest. The second attacker fired wildly, missing Terek, but hitting his companion. Terek used the momentary confusion to close distance, disarming the attacker with a swift strike to the wrist. The third opponent proved more challenging, clearly Ketheri Special Forces, moving with practiced efficiency. They exchanged blows in the confined space, Terek's armor absorbing punishment that would have crippled an unprotected human. A well-placed strike finally disabled the Ketheri operative. Terek paused, breathing heavily as his armor's cooling systems worked overtime. The mission had deteriorated beyond salvation. Ellis was dead, their team scattered, and they'd uncovered evidence of direct Ketheri military intervention, something that could trigger interstellar conflict if proven. He needed to reach the rendezvous point, assuming Nyala had survived. The data chip Ellis had given him with her dying breath might contain crucial intelligence. The journey south took hours. Terek moved cautiously through unfamiliar terrain, avoiding open spaces and using his armor's stealth systems to minimize detection. Twice he encountered enemy patrols and was forced to hide until they passed. The sacred pools that Nyala had designated as their meeting point became visible as dusk approached. A series of tiered springs cascading down a cliffside, the water glowing with bioluminescent organisms. Steam rose from the surface, creating an ethereal mist in the fading light. Terek approached cautiously. No sign of Nyala, but that didn't mean she wasn't already here, watching. He positioned himself with clear sightlines in all directions, back against a large boulder, and waited. Night had fully fallen when he detected movement, too controlled to be wildlife. His hand moved to his weapon. It's me. Nyala's voice came softly. She emerged from the mist, moving with the fluid grace that characterized her species. Any sign of Varric? Terek shook his head. Nothing. Ellis is confirmed dead. Something like grief flickered across Nyala's alien features. She died with honor. What of the mission? Terek produced the data chip. Ellis gave me this before she died. Said the council needs to see it. Nyala examined it without touching. Command-level encryption. We'll need access to council systems to decode it, which means returning to the capital, Terek concluded. Across 200 kilometers of territory now potentially controlled by enemy forces, Nyala added grimly. With no extraction team, no communications, and limited supplies. Tarek managed a wry smile. Just another day as a specialist. Then, surprisingly, Nyala made a sound that his translator interpreted as laughter, brief and perhaps unconscious, but genuine. You humans have an odd perception of normalcy, Specialist Voss. Tarek, he corrected. If we're going to die together over the next few days, we might as well use names. She considered this, then nodded. Tarek. The name sounded different in her pronunciation, the R rolling longer than a human tongue would form it. We should rest while we can. The sacred pools provide natural camouflage from thermal sensors, but we can't stay beyond dawn. They established a small camp in a sheltered alcove behind the pools. Nyala produced emergency rations from a pouch at her belt, nutrient-dense blocks that Tarek's translator identified as journey bread. Here, she offered. It's compatible with human digestion. The flavor was distinctly alien, something between fermented cheese and overripe fruit, but the energy it provided was welcome. As they ate in silence, Tarek processed the day's events, trying to make sense of the Ketheri presence. Why would the Dominion risk direct intervention? He asked finally. Everything I know about them suggests they're pathologically risk-averse, preferring proxy conflicts and deniable operations. Nyala stared into the glowing waters. Something has changed in the balance of power, or they've discovered something worth the risk. The insurgents, the children of ancient light, they're not really traditionalists, are they? They're Ketheri proxies. Perhaps, Nyala said, or perhaps the Ketheri co-opted an existing movement. The children emerged 3 cycles ago, initially advocating peaceful return to ancestral ways. The violence began only recently. Tarek's tactical mind assembled the pieces. Classic insurgency pattern. Start with legitimate grievances, build support, then militarize. The Ketheri provided weapons, training, and eventually direct support. But why? Nyala persisted. What could they possibly gain that's worth potential war with the Conclave? Before Tarek could respond, his armor's proximity sensors triggered a silent alert. He raised a hand for silence, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the pool's glow. Movement, he whispered. Multiple signatures, approaching from the north. Nyala's hand moved to her weapon. Patrol formation or search party. Search party, Tarek confirmed after studying their movement pattern. They're tracking us. How? The pools mask thermal signatures. Not tracking our heat, Tarek realized. They're tracking my armor's energy signature. The Ketheri must have specialized detection equipment. Nyala's expression hardened. Your primitive armor compromises our position. My primitive armor has saved both our lives today, Tarek countered. But right now, we need to move. They gathered their minimal supplies and retreated deeper into the rocky terrain south of the pools. The pursuit team followed, their search pattern tightening as they closed in on their quarry. We need to split up, Tarek suggested. I'll lead them away while you continue south. No, Nyala said firmly. That approach already cost us Varek. We remain together. My armor is what they're tracking. You'll have a better chance alone. The mission requires both of us, she insisted. Your combat skills and my knowledge of the terrain. Besides, your armor may be our only advantage against their superior weapons. Before Tarek could argue further, energy fire erupted from the darkness, striking the rock face inches from his head. Instinctively, he threw himself toward Nyala, knocking her down as more shots followed. 7 attackers, he reported, his armor sensors providing tactical data. Surrounding our position. 2 with heavy weapons. Nyala's eyes narrowed with determination. We fight. They moved with surprising coordination for 2 warriors who had met only days earlier. Nyala's fluid grace complemented Tarek's augmented strength and speed. They engaged the first attackers from different angles, creating confusion in the enemy ranks. Tarek's armor absorbed punishment that would have killed an unprotected human, allowing him to close distance with the heavy weapon operators. Nyala moved like shadow through the darkness, her blade finding vulnerable points in enemy armor with unerring precision. They had neutralized 4 attackers when disaster struck. A Ketheri soldier with advanced camouflage technology appeared behind Nyala, energy weapon raised. Tarek saw the danger too late. "Down," he shouted, but the warning came a moment too late. The energy bolt caught Nyala in the lower back, sending her sprawling. Tarek reacted instantly, tackling the attacker with bone-crushing force. His armor's servos whined as he delivered a strike that shattered the Ketheri's helmet, exposing the alien's pale, mottled face before it went limp. Tarek turned to find Nyala struggling to rise, dark fluid seeping from her wound. He moved to her side, supporting her weight. "Can you move?" he asked urgently, his armor sensors detecting more hostiles approaching. "Yes," she gritted through obvious pain. The bolt cauterized most of the damage. "We need to find better cover. There's more coming." Supporting her weight, Tarek guided them deeper into the rocky labyrinth surrounding the pools. Nyala directed him toward a specific formation, what appeared to be a solid rock face, but contained a narrow fissure just wide enough for them to slip through. Inside, the space opened into a small cave, the walls lined with the same bioluminescent organisms that inhabited the pools, casting a soft blue glow throughout the chamber. "Ancestral shelter," Nyala explained through labored breath. "Sacred to the old traditions. Few remember their locations now." Tarek helped her to a seated position against the wall, then examined the wound. The energy bolt had seared through her armor and into the flesh below. Not immediately life-threatening, but serious without medical attention. "I have limited medical supplies," he said, accessing a compartment in his armor. "Engineered for human biology, but basic principles should apply." "My body will heal," Nyala insisted, though her color had paled noticeably. "Askarian regenerative capabilities exceed human standards." "Even so," Tarek replied, applying a universal coagulant to the wound. "A little assistance never hurts." As he worked, he became aware of her studying him, not with her previous disdain, but with something closer to curiosity. "You could have left me," she said finally. "Logically, it would have improved your survival chances." Tarek continued bandaging the injury. "Not how I operate." "Is this typical human behavior, or specific to you?" "Bit of both, I suppose." He finished securing the bandage. "Rest. I'll keep watch." "Your armor," she said, changing subjects abruptly. "It's not merely equipment, is it? The way it moves with you, responds to threats." Tarek hesitated, unaccustomed to discussing the X-27. "It's adaptive technology. Semi-autonomous response systems." "More than that," Nyala pressed. "It's integrated with you somehow." Perhaps it was the stress of the day, or the unusual intimacy of their shared predicament. But Tarek found himself answering honestly. "Project Aegis, experimental program to create enhanced infantry. They bonded the armor directly to volunteers' cellular structure. 19 test subjects." He paused. "I'm the only one who survived the process." Nyala absorbed this information with typical Iskarian stoicism. "So it is a part of you." "In a manner of speaking, the alloy interfaces with my nervous system, enhances strength, speed, durability, distributes impact force, repairs itself using my body's resources." "And the cost?" she asked perceptively. Tarek smiled grimly. "Constant pain, reduced lifespan, dependency on specialized supplements, the usual fine print they don't mention until after you volunteer. Yet you continue to serve. Why?" It was a question Tarek rarely considered anymore. "Started as necessity. Now, I'm good at what I do, and someone needs to do it." Nyala nodded slowly, understanding evident in her expression. "We call it the path of necessity, when honor and duty require continued service despite personal cost." They lapsed into silence. Outside, the sounds of searching Ketheri forces gradually faded as they lost the trail. Tarek maintained his vigilance while Nyala rested, her species-enhanced healing gradually stabilizing her condition. By morning, she was able to stand without assistance, though movement clearly caused pain. "We need to keep moving," she said, checking her weapons. "If we maintain a southern course, we can reach the border settlements within 2 days." Tarek agreed. "From there, we might find transportation to the capital." They emerged cautiously from the shelter into morning light. No immediate signs of pursuit, but Tarek's armor continued to detect distant energy signatures. The search had not been abandoned. They traveled through increasingly difficult terrain, narrow passes, steep inclines, dense vegetation. Nyala's knowledge proved invaluable, guiding them through hidden paths and avoiding known patrol routes. Despite her injury, she maintained a pace that would have challenged most humans without augmentation. By midday, they had reached a vantage point overlooking a vast valley. In the distance, smoke rose from what had once been a settlement. Haldry Village, Nyala identified, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Agricultural community. No military significance. Tarek's enhanced vision confirmed what they both suspected. The settlement had been systematically destroyed. No survivors visible. "This goes beyond insurgency," he said quietly. "They're eliminating potential resistance. Or witnesses," Nyala added grimly. They altered their course to avoid the destroyed village, heading southeast toward the next settlement. As they traveled, Tarek noticed Nyala's condition deteriorating, her steps becoming less sure, her breathing more labored. "We need to rest," he said finally, as they reached a sheltered ravine. "You're pushing too hard." "I'm fine," she insisted, but the way she leaned against a boulder betrayed her exhaustion. "Your wound is reopening," Tarek pointed out. "I can see the blood seeping through your armor." She glanced down, unable to deny the evidence. A brief rest, then. They found shelter beneath a rocky overhang. Tarek redressed her wound, noting with concern how the injury seemed resistant to the natural healing she had claimed. Something about the Ketheri weapon technology was interfering with Iskarian physiology. "You need proper medical attention," he said, not bothering to mask his concern. "Not an option until we reach Allied territory," she replied pragmatically. As night fell, temperatures dropped rapidly. Tarek's armor regulated his body temperature, but he noticed Nyala beginning to shiver, a concerning sign for a species adapted to Iskarian's variable climate. "Your injury is affecting your thermal regulation," he observed. "An unexpected complication," she admitted reluctantly. Tarek made a decision. "My armor generates excess heat. It's why I need enhanced cooling systems. If we remain in proximity, it should help stabilize your temperature." Nyala hesitated, cultural barriers momentarily asserting themselves. "It's a tactical necessity," Tarek added, correctly reading her hesitation. "Your survival ensures mission success." This reframing seemed to resolve her internal conflict. She nodded once, then moved closer to him. Tarek adjusted his armor settings to increase external heat radiation while maintaining internal cooling. They sat together beneath the overhang, the strange intimacy of their situation not lost on either of them. Two representatives of different species, sworn to different codes, now depended on each other for survival. "The Ketheri weapons," Nyala said after a long silence. "They're designed specifically to counter Iskarian physiology. The wound shouldn't be this resistant to healing." "Targeted bioweapons," Tarek agreed. "That suggests long-term planning. This isn't opportunistic. It's a carefully orchestrated campaign, which means the insurgency was never authentic. It was manufactured from the beginning." As they discussed implications, a sound from further down the ravine caught Tarek's attention. His armor sensors immediately identified multiple approaching signatures, not Ketheri this time, but Iskarian. "We have company," he warned, reaching for his weapon. "Wait," Nyala cautioned. "They're moving openly, not using cover." Tarek remained tense as 6 figures emerged from the darkness. Ascarian warriors bearing the distinctive markings of the southern provinces. They spotted Nyella and immediately raised weapons. War Commander. The lead warrior sounded disbelieving. We thought you were killed in the northern assault. Nearly, Nyella replied, struggling to her feet. Tarek rose beside her, instantly drawing the warrior's attention. Human. One hissed, weapon shifting toward Tarek. Stand down. Hold. Nyella commanded. He is ally, special operative under my authority. The warriors looked skeptical, but lowered their weapons slightly. We're patrol elements from Southern Defense Force, the leader explained. Investigating reports of northern insurgents crossing the provincial border. Not insurgents, Nyella corrected. Ketheri forces in direct violation of territorial sovereignty. This revelation caused immediate consternation among the patrol. Their leader, a grizzled veteran with extensive facial scarring, approached Nyella directly. This is confirmed. You have evidence. Direct observation, she replied, and potentially data confirmation. She gestured to Tarek, who still carried Ellis's data chip. The patrol leader studied Tarek with open suspicion. And the human? Why do we trust his presence? He has proven himself in combat, Nyella stated firmly, and saved my life at risk to his own. The declaration carried the weight of formal acknowledgement in Ascarian culture. The patrol's demeanor shifted subtly, not acceptance, but diminished hostility. We have established camp 2 kilometers south, the leader informed them. Medical supplies and secure communications. They proceeded to the patrol's camp, a well-concealed position with defensible approaches and escape routes. A medic immediately attended to Nyella's wound, applying treatments specifically designed for Ascarian physiology. Tarek remained apart, aware of the warrior's continued wariness. Only when Nyella had been treated did she summon him to join the tactical discussion. The data chip, she requested, extending her hand. Tarek hesitated. Ellis had entrusted it to him with her dying breath. Something in him resisted surrendering it, even to an ally. We need specialized equipment to decrypt it, he said. Military-grade security protocols. Our comm unit includes decryption capabilities, the patrol leader stated. Standard for reconnaissance patrols. Still, Tarek hesitated. Nyella seemed to read his reluctance. Your commander wanted this information to reach the council, she reminded him. This is the surest path. Reluctantly, Tarek produced the data chip, watching carefully as it was inserted into the patrol's communication system. A series of authentication processes followed, the screen displaying rapid sequences of encryption keys being tested. Finally, the system chimed. Access granted. The patrol gathered around as data began streaming across the display. Tactical assessments, intercepted communications, troop movements, but most significantly, geological survey data from the Northern Territories. Resources, the patrol leader realized. They've discovered something. Tarek studied the data. The surveys indicated massive deposits of a rare mineral, one his system identified as crucial for advanced quantum computing systems. Quantum-grade palladium, Nyella confirmed, reading his thoughts. Ascarian possesses the largest known deposits in this sector. The Conclave has restricted mining to maintain ecological balance, while the Ketheri need it for their computational networks. Tarek added, the pieces falling into place. They're creating a puppet state in the north to control the resources. The full implications dawned slowly. This wasn't merely a regional conflict. It was the precursor to potential interstellar war between major powers. If the Ketheri succeeded in establishing a foothold on Ascarian through their proxies, the balance of power would shift dramatically. We need to get this information to the capital immediately, the patrol leader decided. The council must be informed. Plans were made to depart at first light, using the patrol's armored transport. Tarek found himself included in the strategy session, a subtle but significant acceptance of his presence. Later, as the camp settled for the night, Nyella approached him where he sat maintaining his armor systems. Your hesitation with the data chip, she said without preamble. Explain. Tarak considered his response carefully. Trust is earned, not assumed. Even between allies. You didn't trust me. A note of challenge entered her voice. I trust you, he clarified. The others remained unknown quantities. Yet you relinquished the chip. Because you vouched for them. Your judgment earned my trust during our escape. She seemed satisfied with this answer. Your armor requires maintenance. Continuous process, he explained. The interface between biological and mechanical systems needs regular calibration. She observed his work with interest. May I? At his nod, she reached out, touching the surface of the armor where it met his skin at the wrist. Her fingers traced the nearly seamless junction. Remarkable integration, she said, genuine admiration replacing her earlier skepticism. Our armorsmiths could learn from this technology. At considerable cost, Tarak reminded her. The failed test subjects might disagree about its merits. She withdrew her hand. Every advancement has its price. The question is whether the result justifies the sacrifice. Before Tarak could respond, alarms sounded throughout the camp. Sensors had detected approaching aircraft, multiple signatures, moving fast. Ketheri assault craft. The patrol leader identified, rushing to the command post. They've tracked us somehow. Nyla turned to Tarak, suspicion flaring. Your armor. Passive systems only since we joined the patrol, he countered. They're not tracking me. The patrol leader confirmed this. They're using wide-spectrum scans, standard search pattern. They don't have our exact position yet, but they will soon. Evacuation protocols, Nyla ordered, slipping automatically into command role despite her injury. Distribute essential equipment. Prepare for immediate departure. The camp erupted into controlled chaos as warriors quickly broke down essential systems and prepared transport vehicles. Tarak joined the effort, his enhanced strength allowing him to move heavy equipment quickly. They had nearly completed preparations when the first energy blasts struck the perimeter. Trees erupted into flame as superheated plasma ignited the vegetation. They found us. Someone shouted. Nyla grabbed Tarak's arm. The data chip. We can't risk it falling into Ketheri hands. He nodded, understanding the priority. Together they rushed to the command post, where the patrol leader was already removing the chip from the system. Here, he said, thrusting it toward Nyla. Get this to the council. We'll cover your escape. Unacceptable, she began, but was cut off by a massive explosion that rocked the entire camp. Part of the canopy collapsed, crushing one of the transport vehicles beneath falling trees. No choice, the patrol leader insisted. The mission supersedes individual survival. Nyla accepted the chip with evident reluctance. Your sacrifice will be honored. The remaining transport, Tarak interjected. Where is it? Northern perimeter, the patrol leader answered, already moving toward a defensive position. But they're targeting our vehicle specifically. Tarak's mind raced through options. We need a diversion. Outside, the attack intensified. Ketheri forces had surrounded the camp, methodically eliminating escape routes. The patrol warriors fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. I can create a diversion, Tarak decided. My armor can withstand their weapons longer than standard protection. Suicide, Nyla stated flatly. Distraction, he corrected. Draw their attention while you reach the transport. We go together, she insisted. The data requires both of us to reach the capital. Before they could argue further, a section of the command post roof collapsed, sending them diving for cover. When the dust settled, they found themselves separated from the patrol leader by a wall of debris. No choice now, Tarak said grimly. We move together, fast and quiet. Stay in my shadow. The armor will provide some protection. They emerged into chaos. The camp was in flames, warriors engaged in desperate combat against technically superior forces. Ketheri soldiers in advanced battle armor methodically eliminated resistance, their movements betraying professional military training. Tarak and Nyla moved along the periphery, avoiding direct confrontation where possible. When engagement became unavoidable, they fought with synchronized precision, Tarak absorbing punishment, while Nyala struck with lethal efficiency. They had nearly reached the transport when disaster struck. A Kethari commander, distinguished by elaborate armor markings, spotted them and immediately recognized their significance. Priority targets, the alien shouted in its native tongue, which Tarak's translator rendered into English. Capture for interrogation. A squad of elite soldiers converged on their position. Tarak pushed Nyala behind him, his armor absorbing the first wave of energy blasts. The material heated dangerously, warning indicators flashing across his vision. "Get to the transport," he ordered. "I'll hold them here." "Unacceptable," Nyala replied, drawing her ceremonial blade alongside her standard weapon. "We fight together." The Kethari commander approached, confidence evident in his stance. "Surrender the data chip and you may live," he offered in accented Iskarian. "Resistance ensures only pain before death." Tarak and Nyala exchanged glances. No words were needed. They attacked simultaneously, Tarak charging directly at the commander while Nyala flanked the supporting soldiers. The battle was brief but vicious. Tarak's armor allowed him to withstand punishment that would have killed him instantly otherwise, while Nyala's speed and precision claimed 2 soldiers before they could react. The Kethari commander proved more challenging. His armor rivaled Tarak's in capability, and he wielded an energy blade with expert skill. They exchanged blows in a deadly dance, neither gaining advantage. Nyala dispatched the remaining soldiers and moved to assist, approaching the commander from behind. The Kethari sensed her attack and pivoted, his energy blade slashing toward her exposed flank. Without thinking, Tarak threw himself between them, his armor taking the brunt of the attack. The energy blade left a glowing score across his chest plate, warning systems screaming as the material absorbed and distributed the massive energy influx. The momentary distraction gave Nyala the opening she needed. Her ceremonial blade plunged into a gap in the commander's armor where neck met shoulder. The Kethari collapsed, dark fluid pulsing from the wound. "The transport," Tarak gasped, his systems struggling to compensate for the damage. Now, they sprinted for the vehicle, enemy fire intensifying as their objective became clear. Tarak's armor registered multiple hits, each depleting his remaining operational capacity. They'd reached the transport, a heavy 6-wheeled vehicle with reinforced armor plating. Nyala took the controls while Tarak provided covering fire from the open hatch. The engine roared to life, and they accelerated away from the burning camp, crashing through the underbrush. Energy blasts pursued them, some finding their mark against the transport's rear armor. "Can you lose them?" Tarak asked, continuing to return fire. "Once we reach the river," Nyala confirmed. "The crossing points are limited and defensible." They maintained their desperate flight through the forest, the transport's enhanced suspension handling the rough terrain admirably. Gradually, the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. When they finally reached the river, a broad, fast-flowing waterway that served as a natural boundary between provinces, Nyala brought the transport to a halt in a concealed position. "We should be safe temporarily," she said, checking the vehicle systems. "The crossing is 5 kilometers upstream." Tarak collapsed into a seat, his armor finally cycling down from combat mode. Warning indicators continued to flash across his vision. Stress fractures in the composite matrix, energy absorption capacity at 32%, biological interface experiencing increased load. Nyala noticed his condition. "Your armor is damaged." "Functional," he replied tersely. "Self-repair systems are active. It's happened before." She studied him with uncommon intensity, then reached a decision. Drawing her ceremonial blade, she approached him. "What are you doing?" he asked, tensing despite exhaustion. "Testing a theory," she replied. Without warning, she struck directly at his chest plate, not a gentle touch as before, but a full-force blow that should have penetrated standard armor. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The blade struck the armor and seemed to lose structural integrity, bending like rubber upon impact before springing back to its original shape. Nyala stared in astonishment at her weapon, then at Tarak's armor. "Impossible," she whispered. "This blade has cut through battle tank plating." Tarak managed a tired smile. "Adaptive composite matrix. The more force applied, the more resilient it becomes. Energy weapons have similar effects. Distributes the impact across the entire structure." Nyala sheathed her blade, looking at him with newfound respect. "I owe you an apology, Tarak Voss. I dismissed your equipment as primitive when I first saw it. I was wrong." "Apology accepted," he replied, surprised by the gesture. "Though technically, it is primitive. Early prototype. They've likely developed more advanced versions since I'd departed. Sometimes older designs have virtues newer ones lack," she observed, "like reliability under extreme conditions." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by the transport's proximity alert. Multiple signatures approaching from the south, the direction they needed to travel. "More Ketheri?" Tarak asked, forcing himself to his feet despite protest from both armor and body. Nyala checked the sensors. "No, different signatures. Lighter vehicles, moving in search pattern formation. Friendly." "Unknown," she replied, caution evident in her voice. "But they're between us and the capital." Their brief respite had ended. With the data chip containing evidence of Ketheri invasion, they still faced a desperate journey through contested territory. But something had changed between them. Mutual respect born of shared combat and survival. Trust forged in the crucible of fire. As they prepared the transport to continue their journey, Tarak glanced at Nyala. She caught his look and nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of their newfound alliance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The Forge of Trust. Dawn broke over the river as Tarak and Nyala observed the approaching search party through dense foliage. 8 vehicles in standard sweep formation, moving methodically across the terrain. Eskarian military, Nyala confirmed, lowering her optical enhancer. Southern Defense Force markings. Friendlies. Tarak asked, not taking anything for granted after what they'd discovered. "In theory." Her tone conveyed justified suspicion. "But the Ketheri influence may extend beyond the northern insurgents. We can't risk the data falling into compromised hands." Tarak nodded. "We avoid them, then. What's our alternate route?" Nyala pulled up a terrain map on the transport's navigation system. The highlands to the east. Difficult passage, but it eventually connects with the central plains. From there, we can reach the capital's outer districts. 3 days' journey. At minimum. Longer if we encounter resistance. She studied him with concern. "Will your armor sustain you that long without proper maintenance?" Tarak ran a systems diagnostic. The damage from the Ketheri commander's energy blade had compromised several subsystems. Self-repair was progressing, but slowly. "It'll hold," he said, more confidently than he felt. "What about your injury?" "Healing," she replied. "The patrol's medic applied regenerative compounds. I'm at 70% combat effectiveness." Their gazes held for a moment. 2 warriors being honest about their limitations without surrendering to them. "East it is," Tarak decided. They abandoned the transport, too easily tracked, and proceeded on foot into the rugged highland terrain. Tarak's armor enhanced his endurance, compensating for the increasing pain from damaged systems. Nyala moved with characteristic grace despite her injury, her natural agility allowing her to navigate difficult passages with minimal effort. By midday, they had gained significant elevation, the river valley spreading beneath them in panoramic splendor. The beauty of Iskarion's landscape contrasted sharply with the violence they had witnessed. "Your world is remarkable," Tarak observed during a brief rest. "You've seen many others?" Nyala asked, genuinely curious. 17 deployments on 11 worlds, each unique. But this, he gestured toward the vista, this has a harmony most lack. The ancestral balance, Nyla explained. Our earliest teachings emphasize the relationship between civilization and natural systems. Development is permitted only where equilibrium can be maintained, which explains the Conclave's restrictions on mining the palladium deposits. Yes, the extraction process disrupts subterranean aquifers and releases compounds toxic to native species. Controlled harvesting is possible but expensive and slow. While the Kethari wanted all, consequences be damned, Terek concluded. They continued their journey, trading knowledge of their respective cultures and experiences. Nyla described Iskarion's complex caste system, not a rigid hierarchy, but a specialized society where individuals trained from birth for specific roles. The Kashira warrior caste, to which she belonged, served as both military force and philosophical guardians. We don't merely fight, she explained as they navigated a particularly treacherous ridge. We preserve the philosophical underpinnings of Iskarian civilization. Each warrior is also a scholar of ancient teachings. Warrior philosophers, Terek summarized. That explains your combat style, disciplined but adaptive. And you? She asked. What philosophy guides human warriors? Terek considered the question. Varies widely. Some fight for ideals, freedom, justice, religious beliefs. Others for loyalty to nation or family. Some, like me, started with ideals but ended up fighting because it's what we know. You began as an idealist. He nodded, memory surfacing. Enlisted at 18, believed in protecting Earth's interests, defending civilian populations. Standard recruitment poster material. What changed? Reality, he said simply. Politics. Corruption. Realized I was often just a tool for corporate interests or political agendas. After the Aegis project, well, options became limited. Nyla absorbed this with thoughtful silence. Yet you still risk yourself for others. For your commander. For me. Old habits, he deflected, uncomfortable with her analysis. They camped that night in a sheltered cave halfway up the mountain range. Water dripped from mineral formations overhead, collecting in clear pools. The bioluminescent organisms they had seen at the sacred pools were present here too, though in different colors, casting the cave in soft green and purple hues. Terek's armor continued its slow repair process, drawing on his body's resources. He felt the familiar drain, increased hunger, bone-deep fatigue, the constant low-grade pain of biological material being converted to repair the composite matrix. Nyla noticed his discomfort as he choked down emergency rations. Your armor, it heals using your body's resources. Symbiotic relationship, he confirmed between bites. It protects me. I feed it. Fair trade most days. And when the trade becomes unfair, he shrugged. Cross that bridge when it collapses under me. She didn't smile at his dark humor. Instead, she reached into a pouch at her belt and withdrew a small crystalline vial containing amber liquid. Kashira Rejuvenation Elixir, she explained, offering it to him. Accelerates cellular regeneration and energy production. For warriors after extended combat. Terek hesitated. Compatible with human physiology. Unknown, she admitted. But our species shares sufficient biological similarities that severe adverse reactions are unlikely. He studied the vial, then her. The gesture represented a significant level of trust. Such specialized resources would be carefully rationed among her own kind. Thank you, he said, accepting the vial. He removed his helmet, a process that required disengaging several neural interface points, always uncomfortable, and drank the contents. The effect was immediate and intense. Heat spread through his body, followed by a tingling sensation as if every cell was simultaneously alarmed and energized. His vision sharpened, colors intensifying. His heart rate increased momentarily, then stabilized at a strong, steady rhythm. Effective, he managed, breathing deeply as his system adjusted. Already he could feel the armor's repair processes accelerating as it utilized the sudden abundance of biological energy. Nyla nodded, satisfied. Rest now. The elixir works best during sleep cycles. Tarak didn't argue, suddenly overwhelmed by the need for sleep. As consciousness faded, he realized this was the first time since the Aegis project that he had willingly made himself vulnerable in another's presence. He awoke hours later feeling remarkably restored. Diagnostic systems confirmed significant progress in the armor's self-repair, now at 67% functionality, up from 32%. The persistent pain had receded to a manageable level. Nyala was already awake, seated in a meditative posture at the cave entrance. The first light of dawn illuminated her profile, highlighting the alien yet strangely familiar aspects of her features. "The elixir was effective," he said, approaching. She turned, studying him with evident satisfaction. "Your color has improved. Less of the gray tinge humans display when fatigued." "Thank you," he said, meaning it. "It helped significantly." She acknowledged this with a nod. "We should move. I detected aircraft during the night. Military patterns but unidentified configurations." They resumed their journey, maintaining a grueling pace through increasingly difficult terrain. By midday, they had reached the highest passes where vegetation gave way to bare rock and thin air. Tarak's armor compensated for the reduced oxygen, but Nyala, despite her species' adaptability, showed signs of strain. "There," she indicated, pointing toward a distant formation. "The ancestral waypoint. Beyond it lies the descent into the Central Plains." The waypoint proved to be an ancient structure, a massive arch of seemingly natural stone that nevertheless showed evidence of deliberate shaping. Weathered inscriptions covered its surface, the characters unlike modern Iskarian script. "Pre-unification language," Nyala explained, running her fingers reverently over the markings. "From before the Seven Nations became the Conclave. This was a pilgrimage route for those seeking enlightenment." "Religious significance?" Tarak asked, scanning the horizon for potential threats. "Philosophical. The journey through hardship to clarity." She gave him a meaningful look. "Not unlike our current path." They passed beneath the arch and began the descent toward the plains.